Good Monday! Good Monday, you guys, and a very happy noon
Monday.
and a very happy noon o'clock. So, you guys, one of the things that we always talk about is the ability to pivot fast.
Wait. Today's Mindset Monday. What does this have to do with pivoting?
Ooh, everything. So normally this is Mindset Monday, but our very special guest was able to make it to today's show. So today is actually going to be a live guest interview.
Yay!
And today's conversation is going to be very extra special because today's person is one heck of a person. Okay, we have a very impactful guy, physically and figuratively, and we're going to be talking all about that in the next hour or so. Kyle McClellan is a former MLB pitcher who played for the St. Louis Cardinals for 5 seasons. If you're a St. Louis Cardinals fan, go ahead and drop it in the chat box. While he was there, he was named Rookie of the Year in 2008 and was a member of the World Championship team in 2011. In 2013, he signed with the Texas Rangers, and after the 2013 season, he had a tough shoulder injury, which ultimately led to his retirement in 2014. We already talked about pivot. Guess what he did? Just that. Kyle recognized that baseball gave him a platform that will help him to make a bigger impact after his shoulder injury. Him and his wife, Bridget, launched their own charity called Brace for Impact 46 in order to make a difference in the lives of orphan kids in the community. And today, you guys, we're going to be talking about evolving through life, finding the gift in adversity, and making an impact that is bigger than yourself and possibly more powerful than your arm strength. Maybe we'll be talking about his arm strength too, because, you know, we're all about #fitness. So that being said, you guys.
Who wants to see Mr. Kyle? Let me see it in the chat.
Kyle McClellan, welcome to the show. There he is.
How you guys doing?
Great. Give him a warm welcome in the comments, you guys. We're happy to have you today. It's going to be a great conversation.
Yeah, super stoked to have you. So my first question for you is because, I mean, you're an athlete. You've been an athlete for a very long time. And one of the very common things that we see amongst athletes is that, you know, they have this thing that's called goal chasing. Have you always been a goal chaser? Was being, you know, like a top athlete ever been a goal of yours? How did that come about?
Yeah, I think goals are always important in whatever you do. And for me, those goals just change. I think that's the biggest thing that you have to realize is that you can't set your goals so high that you can never reach them. And you set your goals to the point where if you get to that point, you know, you have to change and adapt and make some new goals so that you have something to continue to chase. So for me, it's an ongoing process of setting those goals. You know, when I was in high school, I wanted a chance to play in college. And I signed a scholarship to the University of Missouri. And once I did that, I wanted to, you know, be one of the best players there at the university. And so I worked towards that before I even got there. Ultimately got drafted out of high school, never went to college. And so then my goal was to get to the big leagues. And you know, it's one thing to have a goal to get to the big leagues, but I was so far away from that, you know, if you set your goals so high, you know, sometimes you miss those other rungs on the ladder that you got to get to. And so then, you know, tamping those expectations down to like, what's my 1 year goal? What's my 1 month goal? And then after that year, reevaluating the process and kind of going from there. It took me 6 years to get to the major leagues. So, you know, I think if you just have your goals set at the very top, you're going to get frustrated and you're going to give up. You know, until you get there. So having those realistic goals, having those long-term goals, and making sure you're adjusting them once you get there.
So good. Was it a specific experience or person who introduced you to this whole concept of goal setting?
No, I think it's just figuring out what works for you. I think everybody's different. Some people might operate, without goals and they might be just fine. Other people might have to have them. I've played with so many people throughout the course of my career and so many different teammates, and just watching everybody kind of go through what works for them and their system and their routine. And so for me, it wasn't just one thing. It was just that, like, this is what drives and motivates me. When I was in the big leagues, it was, I wanted to keep my ERA under a certain number. And so, work and work and work towards that. Well, guess what? You have a bad game and you immediately go over that number, you immediately reset those goals. Okay, I want to try to get down to this number, having those reachable, obtainable goals. And for me, that's just what motivated me. That's what kept me locked in and kept me every time I was out there, every day I showed up to the field to make sure that I gave me a purpose to go out and do what I needed to do.
I have a question.
Yeah.
What's the ERA?
ERA is earned run average. So it's a number associated with you. I feel like you should have like this bubble above your head wherever you go when you get to the stadium that has it, because it's the number everybody pays attention to as a pitcher. So when you warm up, it will say, now warming up, Kyle McClellan, win-loss is this record and ERA is this number. And so it's the estimated amount of runs that you would give up in 9 innings if you were to pitch that 9 innings. So as a reliever, you want an ERA under 3.5. If you could get it in the 2s, was really good. As a starter, 3.5 would be a really good ERA. You wanted to keep it under 4.5 if you could. So that was always that was a big mark for me.
Okay, ERA. Say it one more time. The actual
Earned run average.
Earned run average. Okay.
Yep.
I know that other people are wondering the same thing.
So today we're going to be talking about impact, but before we get to that, I want to touch up a little bit on, your baseball career, because it truly gave you a framework to where you headed. Now, let me ask you this: when you started playing baseball, were you more talented than other people, and that gave you an edge? I mean, to bypass college and just go to the leagues right after high school says a lot about your level of performance and athleticism, because also, to make it to the leagues is really, really hard. And maybe if you can, drop some percentages just to, give the audience kind of like a concept of what we're talking about. I'm curious, was it a talent related thing?
Well, for me, as soon as I started playing ball, it's just like every other kid. When I started playing when I was 4 years old, had an older brother, older sister. So I was always, around the ball field, just playing and, playing in the backyard. I have 2 kids now that are 10 and 8. And I can tell you that my experience playing is so much different than it is now. It's so hardcore right now. And I hate it. I know it's wrong, but you really don't have a choice. And that's the unfortunate thing, is that I was talking to some former teammates of mine, and they said, you got 2 choices. They have older kids. They said, you either join it or you fight it. And if you fight it, you're on an island. There's just nobody there to fight it with. And so, from that standpoint, then all of a sudden you're forced to, if you want your kids to play, competitively and play at good levels, you have to go into this, almost year-round thing, which is so unfortunate. I played 3 sports in high school. I played football, baseball, basketball. And each sport taught me so much that I could use in the other sport. Football brought physical toughness and mental toughness, because that was a sport I wasn't good at. I had to work really hard to be a decent quarterback. Baseball was a sport I always, could get out and compete. Basketball I had to work hard at. So I could take those things and apply it into baseball. But as I got older, middle school, I was undersized in middle school. My freshman year, I was 5'3", 120 pounds. And so there's some things that you just can't, I think the one thing people come to realize, they have a kid that's, outstanding at the age of 7 or 8. And they think, oh, this kid's going to be, for sure going Division I, you got all this talent. And then they realize, man, size is a really big, important factor in all athletics. My daughter played soccer, and you start to see how size becomes such a feature of their game and how they play. Baseball, just strength, sheer strength and power that comes with that. So a lot of these kids that you look at that are extremely successful at these young ages, if you follow them, there's some things that they're handicapped by just, they're handcuffed because they're not going to have the size that somebody else is going to have. And it just makes such a big difference. And so for me, as I started to grow into my body a little bit, then I was 5'7" my sophomore year, and I made the varsity team on baseball. And then my junior year, I was 5'11". My senior year, I was 6'2". And so I started to see my velocity jump with each year, because I brought more size to the table. And by my senior year, I was throwing 93, 94 in high school, which nowadays isn't as impressive. But back then, in 2002, there wasn't a whole lot of guys in the state of Missouri that were throwing 90 miles an hour. And that was the benchmark. You had to throw 90 to get looked at by a Division I school. And so once I signed at Mizzou, I continued to progress. And so I was a late bloomer. I was also a June birthday. So I was a late birthday for my age, and just started to kind of physically develop and started throwing hard. So it was a late development for me. I think I always had the skill set and talent, but once my size caught up and I was able to kind of fill out, by the time I graduated, I was 6'2", 185 pounds. And I started to kind of have, that frame that they were looking at for the next level.
So, both Aaron and myself were athletes, and, something that I remember from my own experiences, like you said, like when it comes to athletic performance, there is, the whole element of size that's involved. And now if you don't, quote unquote, fit the standard, then, also being at the age that you were, like, it takes a mental toll on you. Do you feel like being smaller naturally at the start of, your baseball journey, did that give you an edge to perform even better?
Well, I think it's always helpful. Here's the one thing I want for my kids. I want them to be on a team that's 500. Maybe winning percentage, 60%, right around there. You don't want to be, in my opinion, you don't want your kids to be the team that goes out there and beats everybody all the time. They're not learning, they're not developing. My son just finished his flag football season. They've been undefeated for 2 seasons, and we're all sitting there going, okay, how do we challenge them? Because they've never been behind, they've never faced adversity, and so the first time that happens, the reaction that they're going to have, and it's not going to be good. I think it's good to challenge your kids. I think it's good for them to learn from defeat, from losses, because you're gonna mentally grow a lot from that. So I think I definitely benefited from having to earn it. I think being somebody that just naturally always goes out there and is at the top of your game, at some point you're going to get challenged, and your talent is going to be matched. And it's how do you respond to that? And if you never have adversity growing up, and you never have adversity until you get on a big stage or, into kind of those higher ranks, it's going to be a lot harder to deal with it. And so some of the things I love most is when, I go out and work with my daughter, who's a pitcher, and work with her. And then she faces one of the top teams and it doesn't go well. And that's the opportunity when you can actually sit down and talk to her and say, hey, let's take this and learn from it. Why didn't it go well? What are some things we can work on? Because they're receptive at that point. A lot of times with kids and with parents, you get to the point where you can't tell them anything because they've never struggled. And so it's like, well, why would I change anything? Why would I do anything? Why would I listen? And it's hard for them to understand that the reason you're having success isn't because you're doing everything so great. It's because you're physically dominant at this age. There's something that stands out, but that at some point is going to be matched. And so I think it's good, for the kids to be, like I said, in that 500 range, maybe winning percentage a little bit higher than that, but you don't want to be on a team that you're going out winning every game. You're not learning as much as you could. It's fun to put on Facebook and to tell all your friends, but it's another thing when you're talking about development.
Especially, at an impressionable age where, you, like everybody's heard before, you don't learn from your successes, you learn from your failures. And there was a thought I had because we were just talking about this, and it totally left me. And
Let me,
yeah, go. The
so
question will come back to me.
for those of you guys listening, Kyle, what you just said was so powerful. And I want you guys to write this down because I kind of like rephrase it to like a one sentence thing. Winning all the time takes away from your growth opportunity. And now this is something that is so important. And thank you so much for sharing that. Because, oh, my AirPods just fell. But you know, we live in a society where everybody's looking for the instant gratification. And now you're an athlete. We're very much involved in the weight loss space. And, you know, like the principles are literally the same. And, you know, just like, you know, with baseball, yes, if you have a high goal or, you know, a high target, you would want to win more often than not. However, the growth opportunities come during those days where you face difficult challenges. And the same thing happens in weight loss. You know, like number one, people take way too much into consideration what the scale says other than, you know, like looking into other data. And then, you know, like thinking that, let's say once they hit a plateau that, oh, things are not working my way, this is not for me, where the reality is like, this is where the silver lining is occurring. Like, you know, there is an opportunity that you need to overcome. Should you overcome that, you're going to be able to take it to the next level. And that was just pure gold. And if you guys didn't write that down, make sure you do so. Okay. Winning all the time takes away from your growth opportunity.
How old are your kids?
10 and 8.
10 and 8. I wish I remember what my question was. It was really good.
Hey, what would you say are your top lessons from baseball?
If you say it again, you were cutting out.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
What would you say are the top lessons that you've learned from the game of baseball?
And top lessons. There's so many. Yeah, I mean, you know, it's different. It's hard to kind of categorize that because at the professional level, it's so different, right? So it's so different than college. It's so different than little league or high school or anything like that. And for me, really, I had one of my biggest lessons I had to learn was my performance on the field doesn't affect who I am as a person. And that comes from the professional level because, you know, I was still a husband, I was still a father. And so it's so easy to get caught up in performance because that's what pays the bills and that's what, you know, who your identity starts to become. But realizing that if I had a bad game, that didn't mean that my kids liked me any less, or that I had less responsibility when I got home. And when I had a good game, didn't mean that I could come home and, you know, forget my obligations that I had at home and duties as a father and a husband. And so that comes from the professional side. You know, that's a totally different level. But you know, things I did, which also helped me in that transition post career, is realizing that my identity didn't come from who I was as a player. And so it's, you know, I see a lot of guys when they transition out of the game, they struggle with that because they're still chasing that fame. They're still chasing that platform. They're chasing that name and it's not there. We all become former players and even Hall of Famers might be the exception. But once you're done playing, if you line a 10-year-old kid up and you said, whose autograph do you want? Do you want this player that was like really awesome? Or do you want the last player on the roster right now? They all want the roster right now. They want that current player. Like there's something that comes with that. And when you become a former player, that's just the way it is. You're not as significant. You still might be loved and you still might be remembered, but it's just not the same. And so a lot of guys struggle with that. And so for me, that really became, you know, something that I learned a lot, you know, is that my marriage didn't depend on how I did on the field. Me being a father that didn't come into play. And my family loved me regardless. And so that was kind of one of my, you know, top lessons is don't let this get in the way of everything else you have going, because it's so easy to just focus on that. So that would be, probably lesson number one. I mean, there's so many other ones. It'd be hard to even pinpoint them, of what it was, but I got to see there's some things that I took away from baseball. I don't know if they were lessons, but that I took away from baseball that I'll always apply to everything I do. And one, how to be a great teammate. I mean, I saw so many amazing teammates. I had terrible teammates too, that I want nothing that I don't want to be like them, and that sticks in my head too. But so many experiences with guys that, helped me and shaped me and mold me into who I was as a person, who I was as a player. And that goes beyond baseball. That applies to post-career as well, family as well, and things like that. So, I think those are probably a couple of the biggest ones that probably I learned during my playing time.
I love that. Okay, so real quick, you've been talking about setting goals since a young age, and for anybody here who sets big goals, like big audacious goals, and they're just not where they want to be yet, how would you recommend that they detach their identity from not having achieved that goal yet?
Well, I think it goes back to, if you have those big goals, it's fine. But, if like you talk about in the weight loss, if your goal is to lose 100 pounds and you expect to do it in a week, that's not realistic. So if you want to have 100 pounds as your goal, but you have a goal of what you want to achieve each month, or, have those smaller goals, I think is the big part. And I think that will help, give you some of those small victories until you get to the big victory at the end. And I think that's the biggest thing is, we all like victories, and what we say in baseball is ride the highs, because the low's coming. So when it happens, the lows are really bad, but when you get that high, ride it and enjoy it, and and celebrate it, because if you have a good game, it's okay to kind of get yourself feeling good, because you might need that feeling to overcome the negative that's about to. So when those small goals or victories that can keep your morale up and keep you kind of going, and keep putting that one foot in front of the other as you're going. But I think it all comes down to being realistic. If you have realistic goals, you're going to achieve them, as long as you're willing to put the work in. If you have unrealistic goals set right out of the gate, no matter how hard you work, you're not going to get there. And then it's going to create that negative mental cycle of, I'm not getting there, I'm not doing a good job. And so, I think when it comes down to goals, it's great to have it, but it's got to be realistic, and you got to give yourself ones that you can achieve and reach, or else you're doing yourself a disservice, and you're going to get frustrated throughout the process. I think all of this, I mean, weight loss is it's a lifestyle change. If you truly want to get into it and really embrace it and make it something that you're going to keep, and stay with. Same thing in sports, like if you're going to make a change, it's something that is worth making, that a coach has suggested, or that you feel you need to get to that point. For instance, if I wanted to work on throwing my curveball more for a strike, I'm not just going to do it for one game and then bang it and be done with it. I'm going to do it, and then I'm going to instill that into who I am as a player. But it's going to continue to have to be something that I put into my program and my regimen to make sure that I can utilize that, every time I go out there. So, I think just having those realistic goals and celebrating those highs, and that will keep you motivated to go forward into the things that you want to continue to kind of check off that list.
Love that.
So it's not necessarily to have this desire for a large goal, but the importance of setting like checkpoints along the way, so that you're not constantly defeated or losing hope in your ability to achieve said large goal. Because
if you set that large goal is going to take a lot of time. So if you have nothing in between to reach that, it still feels unreachable for a long time. But to have those, sub goals that you can check off the list, that keeps you going and keeps showing your progress as you're going there. And I think that's a huge the mental state of any goal, of any challenge, of any physical activity is the biggest part of it. That's the reason people make it or don't, right? I mean, it's not, the physical side will come with the mental. If the mental's there and dialed in, that's what gets you going. That's what gets you moving. The physical side is a is a reaction to the successful mental side.
Yeah, absolutely. And, a part of success of any kind, be it baseball, weight loss, career, whatever it may be, with the highs also come the lows. So,
Yep.
We just talked about your highs of, just being a top performing player, and then you get this shoulder injury, which isn't it like the most common like injury amongst baseball players?
Well, I had elbow and shoulder, so you can check both those boxes.
Oh, wow. Well, it would make sense as a picture. Now, let's talk about the days when you had to handle the lows, right? So like, you're performing so well and then you have this shoulder injury. What were some of the practices that you were implementing to get you through those difficult days?
Well, for me, I had six surgeries altogether. And so the first one I had was an elbow surgery in the minor leagues. And I was young. I was 21, still in the minor leagues trying to figure it out. And through that rehab process, it took 2 years because I had another elbow surgery in there. It was 22 months from the day I got hurt to the day I pitched healthy in a game again. And, that was tough, but it was actually well needed in terms of my development and maturity side of it. So I went through that. Then I really had no injuries through my first 3 years of the major leagues. The fourth year, I ended up becoming a starting pitcher because we had an injury in spring training. And so my innings increased dramatically from 60 innings to 150 innings. And I haven't done that in a long time. And in the middle of that process is when my shoulder started to hurt. Didn't know what it was, had all these tests and MRIs and everything, couldn't pinpoint it, and kind of dealt with some struggles during that season. And it was the season we ended up winning the World Series. Didn't have surgery on it until the All-Star break. So halfway through the year, the next season is when it kind of reared its head, and ended up being exploratory surgery because they couldn't find it. And once they went in, they were able to see exactly what the problem was. So, there was really a year of struggle leading up to that. And then once I had the surgery, I've been through it before. And so it's like, all right, keep grinding. Well, I knew what was going to happen when I had that surgery. I was going to be released by the Cardinals, just the way it works. I've been around for a while. And so every year you get a pay increase, and you're not really, they're not real excited about giving pay increases to guys that are having shoulder surgeries and aren't sure, how healthy they're going to be. And so for me, it was for that next opportunity. And then went there and kind of struggled through that season, ended up having another arm surgery and then another one to finish it off. But really for me, when I was done, I'll never forget, I was in the doctor's office, and he looked at me and said, "You have to have another surgery." And this is after I had been trying to come back. There was pain every day. It hurt. The physical therapy side of it, just the mental fatigue and wear and tear of it. And I looked at him and I said, "I'm done." And he was like, "Are you sure?" He said, "I think you can come back. Your shoulder's in pretty good shape. We can do this." And I said, I'm mentally exhausted. I'm mentally done with this. It's been 2.5 years since I pitched successfully in the major leagues. And I know what it's going to take to get back there. I'm not willing to put that work in because I'm done. I'm tired of hurting. I'm tired of not being myself. And so I'm ready. I'm ready to go home and kind of start that next process, the next phase of my life. And, it was something that I don't regret. I put the work in, but man, that rehab process is so miserable. And then the reality of like the farther and farther away you get from, every day that you're not pitching the major leagues is a day you're farther away from getting back there. And it's just so hard. That road is so hard to get back there. And, I just didn't want to go through the battle of that, knowing I wasn't 100% anyway. Coming back, I wasn't going to be the same pitcher I was. And that was hard to kind of wrap my head around, and wasn't something I was willing to go out there and battle with. And I'd had some success in my career. I'd had my kids. I was ready to kind of be done at that point, but it was more, the mental side of it. I just wasn't in it like I was prior to. And, that came from having 6 arm surgeries.
When you were going through that, was there any kind of like as an athlete, I ended up having a back surgery, and I know there's this dark time that when you're used to performing at a certain level, and then you aren't able to momentarily, at least, and you just keep thinking about what I used to be able to do. And in that moment, like, was there any kind of positive self-talk that you deliberately would like repeat to yourself, or try to just bring yourself into more of a hopeful light, rather than getting sucked into the abyss of like athlete injury depression?
Yeah. Well, for me, so my curveball is my best pitch. And so for me, whenever I was running, or, sometimes, going through a struggle, like I would just play back in my head, freezing a hitter on a curveball for strike 3. Like that was just like, I can't wait to do that again, and I wish I could go out and do it now, but that is like for me, that was my motivation. That's what I wanted to get back to doing. I also tore my elbow on a curveball. So there was kind of the mental, so I was trying to mentally psych myself, out of being afraid of doing it, being afraid of snapping it off, and going out and doing it. So that was, a lot of times I ran back through that as I'm out running, for however many days in a row, when I couldn't throw, I couldn't throw for 4 months after surgery or 6 months after surgery. And it was just constantly the running side of it. I would run that through my head. So for sure, you gotta, trick yourself. You can't let yourself get into a negative spiral, because you're never going to get out of it. And at the professional level, the window of opportunity, is so small. And I tell people all the time, if I'm a pitcher and I have 5% of my focus somewhere else other than what I'm trying to do, I'm beat every day. I got no chance. Like that's how small it is. The difference is you have to be 100% locked in. If I'm pitching injured and I'm thinking about that injury 5%, I'm going to get killed. Those guys are that good. They're at 100%. And if I'm giving them any percent of, taking off, it's a difference of success and not. And so you just can't let that negativity creep in there. You have to be dialed in 100% all the time. And if not, it's going to be a long day for you.
So, that obviously, being a part of incredible baseball teams, about the value of a team. Now, I feel like a lot of people don't realize that, teamwork is involved in the pursuit of anything. Now, would you mind talking a little bit about, from your experience, what are the characteristics that stand out most when it comes to winning teams?
So obviously you have to have great leadership. That's the one thing. I do a lot of public speaking and everybody wants me to talk about leadership. And it's just interesting to me that everybody's seeking it. There is no answer. There is no, cookie cutter answer, I should say, of how to do it. It's either people have it or they don't. And honestly, I don't think it's something you can really teach somebody. I think there's people that are born to be leaders, that develop into that. And you can't take somebody that doesn't want to be a leader and force them to be a leader. It doesn't work. There's just some people that are built to lead, that crave it, that thrive in it. And then there's people that aren't. And those people that aren't, it doesn't mean that they don't have a valuable role in the team and what they're doing. I play with some of the, and everybody thinks that the best player on the team has to be the leader. And that's not the case either. I think one of the greatest qualities of leadership is understanding your role and understanding when leadership's needed and when it's not. If you come into an environment where you already have those leaders in place, it's okay to just kind of fall in line and play your part of the team there. Now, if something were to happen and there was a spot that opened up and you are that leader, that's naturally gonna show itself and you can fill that void. But I think some people try to insert themselves as leaders before they've built up the equity or respect from their teammates, and it comes off as a more of a toxic kind of thing versus that team leadership. So obviously leadership, and from a baseball standpoint, that's your manager, that's your coaches, and that's your top leaders of the locker room. And we had amazing leaders in St. Louis. Tony La Russa is a Hall of Fame manager. Chris Carpenter, Cardinals Hall of Famer. Adam Wainwright, who's still pitching now. Albert Pujols, Yadier Molina. We were fortunate that typically our best players were also our best leaders. And they led totally differently. So some of them led by their performance. And you immediately, as anybody came into the organization, had immediate respect for them because of what they could do on the field. But they also backed it up with their off the field stuff. They're the ones that are pushing you. You know, I'm watching Chris Carpenter pitch, and I respect him, and I'm you know, loving what I'm seeing on the field. And then the next day he's in there, you know, bright and early running and lifting and pushing himself in the weight room. So I'm like, as a young player, I'm like, well, shoot, I better be in there with him. You know, I better be out there running. I better be doing this because I can't let him, you know, outwork me. And then all of a sudden that kind of starts pacing everybody else without him having to say anything. He's just leading by example. And so I think, you know, those are your natural leaders. Those are the ones that aren't forcing it. It's just like, hey, this is how I prepare myself. And I do it really well on the field. So then other people try to get like that. You know, they want to follow that lead. They want to be, you know, be like them. And so they're going to try to replicate what those guys are doing. Then you got your other guys that lead by doing that as well. But then, you know, they're gravitating towards young guys. They're trying to share their knowledge and experiences they have. And I had some great teammates that helped me with that. And there's some that don't want to. There's some that don't want to share what makes them successful. They're worried about, hey, maybe you're going to get traded next year and we're going to compete against each other. And I don't want you to have that advantage and that edge. I'm going to keep it to myself. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's, you know, that's the way everybody goes about it. But, you know, you got to have great leadership and you got to have team players. And I think athletes do this better than anybody. I serve on the board of the School of Business at University of Missouri. And we were just talking about, you know, how athletes have this unique skill set and traits that can be used in so many different areas. You know, you talk about some of the racial divide that goes on in our country. In my opinion, athletes do it. They can handle that better than most, because the reality is I don't care who's next to me in the locker room. I don't care what they look like, where they come from, what they did last night. What I want to know is, can we win? Can you help me win? Can we be on a team that can win? And if we can do that, I don't care about anything else. When we're on the field, nothing else matters other than, can you make that play? Can you get this hit? Can you make this pitch? Can you execute? And I think that is a unique bond that athletes have that really can be beneficial to society in so many different ways. Of nothing else matters other than, if we're on a team together, can we win? And if we can do that, if you can contribute to the winning culture of our team, then, you know, then we got something.
So good. So good. Leadership and team players. Love that. All right. So shoulder injury. I mean, your mess has now, you know, pivoted to becoming a bigger part of a bigger mission. So, you know, the name of your mission, Brace for Impact 46, number one, like, who came up with that name, and why that name specifically? And then, you know, I personally would love to know, you know, truthfully love your charity, but why that specific one?
Yeah. So my wife and I, for 3 years, were looking for somewhere to help. When I was playing here in St. Louis, raised in St. Louis, won a World Series here, and I raised my family here. And so St. Louis is always extremely important to me and my wife. But we looked for 3 years and we couldn't find it. I'm not somebody that just puts my name on something and shows up every once in a while to kind of shake hands and wave at everybody. I want to be involved in it. And so while I was playing, it just wasn't the right time. I also put myself in a bubble when I was playing here to make sure that I could be successful on the field. So I didn't want to get, you know, pulled away in too many directions playing in my hometown and be sent down to AAA and be sitting there in Memphis going, man, I wish I would have, you know, focused a little bit more and put a little bit more into what I was doing on the field. So it just wasn't the right time. Had a hard time finding what it was. And so when I got done, I had my first shoulder surgery, first shoulder surgery, and maybe my second, and was trying to figure out. I kind of knew the direction I was potentially heading down, and so I reached out to a friend of mine and said, "Hey, we're looking to get involved. What are some things we can do?" And that friend of mine was Adam Wainwright, who's a pitcher for the Cardinals, and Adam and I we align up very well on our ideas of how we want to help people. And I knew if Adam was supporting something financially, that he had vetted it, and it was something that I was going to align with as well. And he mentioned a lot of different things, and he said, "Hey, I tell you what, we're going to Haiti in 3 weeks. Why don't you and Bridget go with us?" And it was something we always wanted to do, but never really engaged in it because, you know, when I was playing, I didn't want to be in a third world country right before spring training, or what if I got sick, or I couldn't throw, or I couldn't lift. I used all those excuses to not go. So this one, I didn't really have an excuse. And so we jumped on a plane, headed over there, and I couldn't tell you prior to that trip what exactly we were looking for, but when I saw it, we knew it. And it was just like, this is where we need to be. And what I realized over the years is what we were looking for is that local leadership. And so the story of Haiti was these 6 kids that grew up in an orphanage together, shared with our partner, who's out of Pittsburgh, their vision in the late 80s of what they wanted to do. And they said, we want to do what people have done for us. And so we want to build an orphanage because we've been given life through this orphanage. And we want to do that for other people because we know there's such a need here. And so those 6 kids sit on our board in Haiti. They have their own board, their own Haitian nonprofit, and we come alongside and support them. And so I think the thing that we learned through the nonprofit time and why we couldn't find something in St. Louis, I think we were directed there kind of on purpose, is I think in St. Louis we would have failed because we would have come in and said, this is what we're doing. This is how it's going to be done. This is what we want to see done. We're funding this. Just do what we want. And we would have missed that whole value of local leadership of saying, what is it that we can do to help you? What is it that's needed? And you already have trust and relationships with the local community. So how can we just elevate your platform? And that's what we get to do in Haiti. We don't tell our board what to do. We ask them for what's needed. And then we do our part, which is to financially support them. So our organization, Brace for Impact 46, is a partner. Adam Wainwright and his foundation are a partner, and then our partner in Pittsburgh are as well. So we're a 3-headed monster that get to do some amazing things there. And we started with a children's home. We have 41 kids in there. Went to a school that started with 150 kids. Now we have 420 kids in our school. We have a hospital that one of the kids that grew up in our orphanage became a doctor, went to 7 years medical school in Port-au-Prince, came back to serve the people of his community. And he runs a very large staff, runs it, directs it. They see over 200 people a day, plus a community health program that goes out in the community and serves people that can't get access to the hospital. We have water and sanitation, over 30,000 people on clean drinking water, 1,100 toilets we put in the community at houses, and a vocational school that is training some of these kids that are getting this education for real life jobs that they can find in the real world once they're done. So it's one thing to have the education. It's another thing to further that and figure out how we can utilize that for actual jobs that are available there, which is one of the biggest problems in Haiti. 2 years after we started Haiti, we said we got to come back to St. Louis. And so we made that transition. We found a great partner. We used the lessons that we learned in Haiti of trust and that local leadership and how we want to do it. And we fully support him and his organization that purchases homes in a very concentrated area, renovates them. These are all homes that were built in the 1800s, early 1900s in bad shape. Most of them are very bad shape. We renovate them with all local contractors. So we don't do volunteer work. We raise money and we hire people that live in and around the community to be a part of that transformation. So we hire roughly 50 workers for every house we do at an 80% minority rate. And so that's been an important part of our success and our progress and our trust of the community. And once the houses are done, we place families in them with a community coordinator that helps that family walk every step of the way. So things are going to happen, things are going to come up, changes are going to be happening. We are going to surround you with the resources you need to be successful as a family unit. They have to pay rent. They have to volunteer in the community, and they have to attend seminars with our community coordinator in some of the deficient areas of deficiency that they have been identified, so that those areas can be addressed and be improved upon. So the name came from when we went to Haiti. We went there to have an impact on the kids, but we weren't braced for the impact it was going to have on us. And so the work that we do and we get involved with, we just say you have to be braced for the impact you're going to have on other people, but also the impact that it's going to have on you. Because if you're truly doing life-changing work, it can't help but transform you as well. And so that's kind of where the name came. We had to put 46 on the end of it because Sully, when he landed the plane in the Hudson, he said brace for impact, and he wrote a book on it. And so in order to not get sued by Sully, I had to put my uniform number on the end of it.
I love
That's
that.
amazing.
Hey, so I mean, there is a board to the charity, and basically you guys just support it. However, do you know what is the long-term vision for the charity?
Yeah, I would love to tell you. Here, this is the nonprofit debate, right? Sustainability is number one. It's what everybody wants to talk about, and I hear it, I understand it, but you also have to put it in context of sustainability looks different in a lot of different areas. Sustainability in North City, we're going to be able to achieve because once the houses are done, they're going to generate, through the rent that the people are paying, they're going to generate income to maintain those houses if something were to come up. Haiti's a different animal, and Haiti's a different animal, one, because there's so much need, and two, because there's lack of resources. So you have to look at it of before you can move on to that sustainability side, who's going to make that sustainable? And the things that are needed there, they're not provided by the government. They're either the local people are going to have to do it or outside NGOs, and that's a challenge in a country like that when the average salary, the average person makes $2 a day. There's just not a whole lot of money that they can spend on some of these other things. So that's our challenge. That's our long-term challenge of what we have to do. I'd love to get out of the fundraising business and tell you that we're going to create things that are going to generate funds down there. The reality is we need to create those things here stateside, and we've done that. We have a coffee that we sell on our website that we buy from Haiti. So we support the local workers and farmers down there. And then we sell it on our website. We have a subscription people can sign up for. We ship to you every 3 months. And all that money we make goes directly back to sending kids to school. So every 24 bags of coffee we sell sends one kid to school for an entire year.
Is it this link?
Pretty crazy. That's our child sponsorship program. So that you can go on there and pick out one of our 41 kids and put in an amount that you would like to support. That's a monthly deal. We will send you a packet that kind of gives you a welcome and a picture of the kid. We're also pretty protected of our kids and their stories. So we're pretty upfront about that child sponsorship program. It's not going to give you, special access to the kids where you're going to be writing and, things like that. We will share some information with you. You'll get a birthday message from the kid on your birthday month, but we want to make sure that all those kids are treated the same. And so we don't think it's fair if somebody gets if one kid's sponsored by 8 people and they all write letters and we go down there and hand them to her, and the little girl next to her doesn't have a sponsorship. And so we always say, if you want to write a letter to the kids, write it to all of them. We'll read it in front of them, to all of them, and kind of go from there. But yeah, that child sponsorship is is a way to help us monthly. And the coffee, on that Brace for Impact 46.com. Here's a coffee here, actually. You can click on the shop link and it will take you there. You can buy individual bags or you can do the subscription. And then on the back here, we have our story and what we do. And Caldy's Coffee, who here in St. Louis has helped us do this. And it's been a great opportunity for us to provide resources down there. Everybody's drinking coffee. So why not drink coffee that sends kids to school and helps farmers and workers there. And it's something we're really looking to expand from our standpoint, because we know it's a great way to help down there. And it's a part of the sustainability piece, right? Like I said, the U.S. side is a big part of this. We're trying to set up a t-shirt factory in our vocational school that we can make t-shirts and generate income from U.S. customer base. It's just, everything takes a while down in Haiti. So we're still working on that process, trying to make it work, but we have the coffee up and running, we ship out of my basement. Oh, so you make an order, we'll handwrite a note on there to you, and we'll ship it to you right out of our basement here.
That's awesome.
I love it. I love it.
That's
I mean,
so awesome.
man, you know, it's beautiful when you can, you know, take a story and bring it full circle. And that is truthfully what you're doing. And I can only imagine how fulfilling that is. I know that we're definitely, I mean, you see the name of the show, Espresso with Aaron and Street. We're definitely going to be getting some coffee. If you guys do want to get some coffee, go to Brace for Impact 46. BraceForImpact46.com. That is BraceForImpact46.com. Okay, where you can get your coffee. And if you want to sponsor a child, you can go to BraceForImpact46.com/child-sponsorship. Whatever you find it in your heart. Kyle, thank you for who you are and for all that you do. And, you know, we also know how many moving pieces you have going on in your life and how valuable your time is. And, you know, we truly appreciate, you know, you taking the time out of your very precious day where you're helping a lot of people to, you know, share your mission with our community. We're definitely going to support it. And thanks for who you are. And you guys, if you like today's episode, you already know what we always say. Just go ahead and pay it forward. Pay it forward by sharing this episode with somebody else that you know who will find value and will resonate with today's message. And I can tell you guys that I know that a bunch of y'all have resonated in so many ways with the messages, whether it was all about goal setting, teamwork, leadership, mindset, having a mission bigger than yourself, helping out a kid in need, or just drinking good coffee. So that being said, you guys, I hope that you have an amazing rest of your day. And Kyle, thank you so much for taking your time once again. We're truly grateful.
Yep. Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
It's our honor and our pleasure. Bye, guys.